Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us and listen to our presentation on the Obamacare website launch. So in overview, in summer of 2013, the Obama administration intended to make a change on a large scale to the health insurance system that had not been addressed until then. What they had proposed was the Affordable Care Act, or ACA, which outlined the rights to health insurance subsidies to groups of people living below the average wage line. In order to do this, the Obamacare administration had to come up with a way of getting insurance options for all U.S. citizens, and the best way to do this was to make a marketplace website in which everyone could access and use. So the idea of healthcare.gov was conceived, a site which citizens could go on and look at insurance options, subsidies, and what the ACA was doing for them.
After analyzing various problems that occurred with the new healthcare.gov website that was intended to make it easier for Americans to obtain health insurance, we are recommending a solution to the government of the United States. Problems we analyzed were server could not manage user intake, fraudulent companies and users are gaining, reputation of the government is damaged. Alternatives considered were each state to develop their own insurance website, revamp the current healthcare.gov website, or shut down the site and return to fair competition. Some causes we considered were number of visitors, overly complex, lack of harmonization, not scanning for authenticity, low regulation, low security, and software deadlines. We recommend revamping the current healthcare.gov website.
So the first problem introduced to us in the case is that when the website was launched, the page was inaccessible. It could not manage the interested people trying to access the site, and it resulted in numerous slowdowns, crashes, and complaints. Users could not get through the application process and could not make an account, therefore were unable to use the site as intended. The causes for this, firstly, was the issue that the number of visitors on the site was grossly underestimated by the U.S. government. The site had been designed for an average of 50 to 60,000 simultaneous visitors. In the first weeks of launch, the page experienced, however, 5 to 6 times that, so an average of 250,000 simultaneous viewers. Stress tests that took place before the site's launch also revealed that the site would become slow after a mere 1,000 simultaneous users attempting to work the web page. The second cause was that healthcare.gov was also a very complex system. Because the site needed so much personal information to operate for any single user, a multitude of checks and inquiries were needed for a user to access the page. This created more slowdowns as the site found several bugged areas with drop-down menus showing no text and in any of their available fields or embedded links not leading to anywhere. The site frustrated users. This created more problems with managing the site, users with individuals being stuck in a particular page or in a loading screen, and the site very quickly went well over its capacity of users. The third cause tied into the site was that there was 50 contracted companies to ensure that the site would work corresponding to how it was envisioned. However, work from several areas made the site not compile well. In some instances, the site worked to what it needed to, and all information could be provided when it was properly interpreted by the receivers. But in other cases, information was incorrectly compiled and requests were skipped over by receivers. Now the next problem that the website had was that fraudulent companies and users were able to gain access to the website. The website did not scan for authenticity of human communication and other systems that were infiltrating as American users. None of the systems in place had methods for checking the validity of some signing into the healthcare.gov, which is incredible considering the site would be able to access IP address information and should be able to check to see that some of the information it receives should make sense to what is being entered by a matching government database. The lack of a system being in place to help work around this opens up problems where if someone were to make a falsified account, they have the ability to enter the marketplace and sign off plans away from people who actually need them. The next issue is there's not enough security around which companies are entering in as an insurance providers. Essentially, any interested party could display itself and offer insurance within the site or set up a similar page to healthcare.gov as a fraudulent website and offer health insurance. Because of this low regulation on companies, some companies are enrolling and they don't meet ACA regulations and are not able to actually implement any insurance policies for clients looking to be insured. So, the case's third and longest term problem is the reputation of the U.S. healthcare system. It will be severely damaged by this website's lack of performance. Because the site is not maintaining an inflow of users since the launch, it had an incredible shakeup with the U.S. government and its citizens. Many outraged that the government couldn't set up a smooth working web page, others losing confidence in the government's ability to do some of the other things that it is expected of them. The software-regulated deadlines put a large amount of public pressure on America to use the site, even with its downfalls. The deadline for insurance enrollment meant fees and penalties if not acquired by the specified date of March 31st, and online enrollment closed. This made many of people uneasy about even needing to use the site before they did, because the site they knew were now forced to use was essentially the least enjoyable experience one could have on the internet. The enrollment process was also not easy. Individuals were not familiar with the online insurance marketplace that had just recently been implemented, and adding your own personal living status and receiving a perfect insurance plan was not happening with all people. Some were getting lost and comparing prices and plans, and others were just not getting any information. Previously, before the site, most Americans would simply stick to their insurance plan that they've been using for however long, and would not put very much effort into comparing various insurance plans to find the best deal.
Time, cost, public interest, security, and ease of use were selected as the criteria when evaluating the various alternative solutions for the problems of our case. Time being most critical at 40%. This is because implementing the solution to the issues at hand was by far the biggest constraint for the government. They only have until February to ensure that everyone could somehow access an insurance plan. The consequences of not having a timely solution would mean a tremendous lack of trust between citizens and government, immense problems with people having to pay fines because they weren't able to get insured, and people going uninsured until the next enrollment period. Security and privacy are also of great importance, weighted at 30%, because so much personal information is being stored. If a breach in the system were to happen, any number of people could have much of their private information compromised, such as health records, identification, and financials. Public interest in site and public opinion are other obvious important criteria, weighted at 15%. Because a government organization has an obligation to keep its citizens appeased, so it's important to ensure that alternatives also maintain good reputations with the public. Cost weighted at 10%, the U.S. government spent over $500 million in setting up healthcare.gov. So of course they would have interest in not spending more tax dollars, but the issue arises that regardless if they don't act, it could end up costing public more in fees than they would have otherwise be exempt from if the problem didn't exist. Ease of use ties into maintaining public interest and is weighted at 5%. It's a decision criteria because of its importance, but it's so obvious that it needs to be increased that we weighted it the least, but it's still a priority.
Alright, so on to our alternatives. Our first alternative is that each of the 36 states involved in the program could develop their own statewide website, complete with its own server. The pros for this is that each state can handle state user inflow, and it would improve usability. Certainly, because the site and users wouldn't be subject to a website full of bugs and errors and dead ends, because each state would have its own site. Companies can be more closely inspected at the state level, because it would be easier to track just who is issuing insurance policies and who is getting them. Because they will have less crowding, this will be possible, and the improvement of usability for both companies and consumers. Deadlines could also be state-specific, because we give more power over to state governors, and they would be able to make adjustments to their program if need be for their circumstances. The cons for this, however, are that fake websites will increase and be more difficult to find and deal with, because some discrepancies are guaranteed to arise state to state for how much monitoring goes on, and this could give opportunity to hackers or other internet criminals looking to abuse the system. The other issue with creating 36 individual state sites is that this would segregate the state-to-state relationship, because governors and users of the site may be uneasy about the permanence of the site that they are using. Our next alternative is to revamp the current site, still under government control. We do this by smoothing out bugs and errors in the system, solving the problem of the slow web page, and it would definitely improve now tarnished record of the government's ability to manage viable websites. The other benefit is that this would save lives. Several thousands of Americans pass away due to not having a plan to cover basic medical needs and thusly either starve to death in bankruptcy or go without basic medical attention. This alternative, however, is not exactly cost effective, as it's going to cost the government more money invested into the website to fix, and the time it would take to complete this is not easily estimatable because the time it took to set up the website in the first place was thought to be expected and did not prove correct. Alright, our third and final alternative would be to shut down the healthcare.gov site and return back to the original ways of fair competition in the insurance market. Doing this would give customers more freedom and buying power to influence their decisions. For instance, a family may continue to use the same insurance provider for multiple generations should they see fit. Alternatively, other third-party businesses in the market, like insurance brokers and websites for comparing rates, would also begin to thrive. However, since there would not be a government body dictating that the insurance was needed to be purchased and when, citizens would continue to go uninsured, meaning the number of deaths from lack of basic care would go unchanged. Insurance rates would still be standardly high, since the industry will remain privatized, meaning that competition will be the only thing driving down the price of insuring someone. Also, there would be a lack of subsidies because the government would have less influence in the insurance market.
Our solution is to revamp the current healthcare.gov website. This will assist in gaining back the reputation of the government and trust of the citizens, will handle the inflow of users, make enrollment easier, properly scan users and companies for authenticity, and provide more security around information. Solution justification with respect to problems. For problem 1, the revamp of the new site would address this problem by expanding the intake of the server to the proper amount needed, while also dispersing some individuals to waiting rooms where they can gather further insurance information while also learning or lessening the server's needed intake. The site's complexity and harmonization would both be improved during our proposed maintenance periods. The continuity of the site and ease of use are important to our solution and will be eliminated by the end of our implementation plan because our plan states an ongoing basis of improvement and testing. For problem 2, the website was not doing an accurate job of scanning for authenticity. This problem will be eliminated during the revamping of the site. Authenticity and individuals enrolling will be of higher concern because the last thing we want is undeserving people logging on and gaining insurance benefits while taking them away from individuals or families that qualify for the same benefit and are in need. Security is in part caused by low regulation of companies enrolling. This will be revamped a great deal. There have been causes in some states of fraudulent companies enrolling with no intent to deliver sound insurance policies and have been taking advantage of the subsidies the government offers. Government regulators will be closely inspecting the companies enrolling their services and especially to see if they are following ACA standards. The process of applying to deliver insurance will be changed significantly with our solution plan. For problem 3, our solution will assist in maintaining the inflow of users, as we mentioned before, with waiting rooms and increasing in server intake. Software-regulated deadlines have made a negative impact on the perspective of the site. Users have disagreed on the implementation of an insurance deadline being put into effect, and unfortunately, this deadline will continue to exist. However, the deadlines will become a lesser issue than before, because enrollment will be less complex. The goal is to have every user that logs on to gather information, make an account online, shop for insurance, and find a proper policy that same day. Our solution will make that goal possible by revamping the website with current infrastructure of the site and smoothing our time-consuming and frustrating error messages and bugs. Our solution justification with respect to decision criteria. Alternative 1, which, to remind you, is each state's develop their own statewide server and website. This would take a fair bit of time to create and implement. More policies would come into effect on the site design. Each state would take different amounts of time to prepare this, and it's uncertain if it would be implemented by next enrollment period. This alternative, however, would improve security and privacy. Hackers would only be able to gain information on each different server they take over, so disbursement would be an asset to privacy and security. It is uncertain that Alternative 1 would increase the public interest in the site long term, but short-term interest would occur if each state created their own personal site. There would be a cost to implementing 36 sites, but each site would be funded by the state and subsidies to this plan would probably be received by the government. Ease of enrollment would hopefully improve, but it is also uncertain in Alternative 1. Alternative 2 is our solution, revamping the original healthcare site. Time would not be of concern. The implementation plan outlines the time in weeks to implement the plan, and scheduled testing and maintenance periods would make it easy to implement and timely in respect to the last day of enrollment. Alternative 2 definitely be completed in fair time before the enrollment period ends, so time is not an issue. Security and privacy would be improved or of equal quality. This is a government-run website to enroll for insurance, so the information being communicated is sensitive and will be under strict laws and supervision. Public interest was significant when the site was first introduced. This interest should either increase or be of equal interest with the new site features and improvements that will occur. Cost of revamping the site will be low compared to Alternative 1. Simple testing and maintenance would be costly for smoothing out bugs and errors, but the cost is a trade-off worth considering to improve the site of such importance. Ease of use and enrollment is set to improve the greatest of all alternatives with Alternative 2. Now to Alternative 3, which is shut down the site and return back to our original ways of fair competition. Time would be the fastest out of all the alternatives because it takes no time to shut down a site. Security and privacy is lacking because the user information will be amongst the promise of each company financing insurance. They would have the servers that hold the information, and it will vary greatly in privacy measures, but it's certain that the user privacy would decrease compared to if it was run by a government entity. Public interest in site would be non-existent because the site would cease to exist and the interest in the company's specific website would increase. Costs would be very small because it's just fulfilling a simple act of shutting down the healthcare.gov website. Ease of enrollment would vary amongst the different companies because they will be generating their own enrollment sites. And Alternative 3 ranks well on our decision criteria in theory, but it's the cons of shutting down the site that make the difference. Alternative 3 would be moving backwards in insurance innovation and technology innovation. This is why Alternative 2 is the best alternative and addresses our problems the best. Our implementation plan. Firstly, it begins on October 8th because the site went live on October 1st, 2013, and after much bad feedback, we decided to implement a website revamp plan. Anticipated finish, given that our enrollment period ends February, will be December 8th of 2013. Firstly, making a waiting website to lower server intake and slow down enrollment. Website will be information delivered through video about how the U.S. cares about the user's needs and the healthcare program is to benefit them. In designing the waiting page, we need to come up with content for the page, at how many individuals and when the server reroutes people to other waiting pages. Maintenance breaks. Removing bugs in preparation for volume will take place until the end. Every other week is when our maintenance breaks will be. Once a week, the site will go down at low peak hours and maintenance will be performed throughout the implementation plan. This will include finding bugs, removing bugs, patching dead-end links, expanding server capacity, and configuring all embedded links properly. Testing. Testing will be thoroughly going over the page reroutes and bugs that were eliminated. General testing and of ease of enrollment. Testing follows each maintenance break, so every other week other than the maintenance break. This testing will ensure that website is functional and ongoing testing will commence to further smooth out bugs and errors over the time of enrollment, probably until the end of February. Update user-based interface. The current user interface is complex. Simplifying this process by making it easier for the user to input their information is a priority. Update user interface will include, for the first few weeks, at maintenance break, we will update user fields so that they record more accurately. An example of this simplified process could be checking a box of yes or no rather than individuals needing to type in male or female. Our contingencies for high-risk portions. The high risk is the maintenance not working on time, on budget, and performs what the company needs to do. If we use the same company, CGI, they may fault on the deadline or on the cost as they did before. This is a risk. Reputation continues to decrease. The morale is lost in the government and website problems continue. They could run into new problems trying to fix old problems. That is why we have testing breaks. Capacity. May not be able to handle the capacity of America even with the waiting website implemented. The solution would be to after enrollment period, smooth out further problems in the off time of the website, which is past enrollment period from February to October.